All right, now on Tennis Channel Inside In, Mitch Michals here in the studio. We're pleased to be joined by an expert in the sports gambling, sports handicapping side of things, a betting analyst and writer for Yahoo Sports book, hosts the Stack of Stats podcast, where she breaks down the world of sports betting, focusing on statistics and analytics. She's a Texas Longhorn, a social media extraordinaire, physique athlete, and also a very good poker player. Pamela Maldonado, thank you for joining Tennis Channel Inside In.
Thank you for having me. I wouldn't go as far to say a very good poker player. It has been a while.
Okay. I was wondering which one of those you're going to have
Huge
a problem
fan.
with. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to always love our first loves, right? And I've read your backstory. Sure. I'm excited to chat with you on this. And I know as a Longhorn alum, one of the things that excited me about your story is that it's the unconventional way to get where you are. So I looked at your resume. I looked at kind of what you had done before you got into this world. So I had the question, you were working in the academic advisory world. You were looking at a different career. How did you, I don't want to say fell in love with sports, but how did you get the itch to maybe pursue something that led to you being one of the premier handicappers out there?
I have done it all. If you look at my resume, I've bounced from job to job. I was part of the 2008 layoff. I was working in an oil company at Valero in San Antonio. I've worked for judges, attorneys. I thought for the longest time I was going into politics and being an attorney on my way to be a Supreme Court judge. I had aspirations that had nothing to do with sports. And what kind of shifted my mindset on that was moving to Vegas. My guy was a professional poker player. 2011, the crash hit hard where it became illegal in the country. So bye-bye online poker. Okay, what are we going to do next? Well, he needed to find a place to play live, and he chose Vegas. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I said, you know what? I was an academic advisor at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And I had no job planned. I was just like, cool, you're going, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna figure it out. You're getting into poker. What if I get into poker media? I love writing. And I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect timing. I ended up reaching out to some editors with pokernews.com. They picked me up. I was with them for my entire time in Vegas. And if you look at the casinos, what is right next to every single poker room? Mm-hmm. The sports book.
Yeah. It's a typical feel-good fairy tale, go to Vegas and have success. Oh, wait, no, it's actually the other way around most of the time. And I know you name checked UTSA in there. So, I mean, you leave and then they just take off and become the best football program in school history, maybe even the best in the state of Texas right now.
Right now, 100% the best football team in college football in the state of Texas. Yeah. And it's not even close. It's not even close. Preseason, I touted them as a largely underrated team. I think they were something about 5-1 odds to win the conference. They're undefeated right now, and it is the hype of the town. If you see their banners in Austin, you see their banners all over between now and San Antonio. It is a fantastic team. The UTSA Roadrunners doing much better than my Texas Longhorns, who just got wrecked last week against Kansas.
I know basketball season started, but I had to make sure that was actually a football game when I saw who won that one. Well, you mentioned the sports books and it's that unconventional path to get into that. So you're saying that you were a complete novice when you started to look at sports betting. And I guess my follow-up would be, how did you go about learning to understand what was happening and then how to make money and ultimately how to give advice to people?
Oh, it's a loaded question. Okay, so a lot of money management, a lot of what you do with sports betting is largely correlated to what you're doing in poker, and that's money management. It's the same thing with playing the stocks. You have to manage your bankroll. You have to understand what is a risk that is worth taking and stuff that you should be laying off of because you don't have that much of a margin. The margin for winning is not that strong. So you have to find and pick your spots. I was talking football a lot. You're around nothing but dudes all day playing poker. I was always the only chick on the table. And so, all right, what conversations am I going to talk about? Let's talk some football. I grew up in Texas. I know the Big 12. I knew college football like the back of my hand, and players were starting to know more and more. Hey, you're actually pretty good at this. Have you ever thought about wagering some money? Walked right on over to the sports book. I started betting here and there. The But then it became, all right, I'm picking up steam here. And what I'm doing now is what I was doing back then. And that was posting, hey, I'm playing this team to cover this spread. I'm taking the total. And I would post it to my Twitter account, which was only poker players. And so I would end up just talking. And I always gave a reason. I've never been like taking Texas -7. And that's it. Like I always gave a thorough, and my perception of the game, I would always post it. And after I decided to leave the poker world, apparently people were taking notice because there is a company that reached out and they said, hey, we love what you do. You're really good with your analysis. Would you like to join our team? Just like that. It is a fairy tale situation, but it was the right place at the right time. And I know that I've only been in sports betting for less than for a couple of years or less, but ultimately I've kind of been doing this for a long while now. And that was my resume, Twitter.
And I'm guessing success was the reason why the following, like there's a correlation with that. Like you're going to get more popular if the picks are right. No one's perfect, but if your average is pretty high. What got you into tennis in that world, which I would say isn't as crowded in the marketplace, at least in North America, in terms of handicappers and analysts. But what got you into breaking down some tennis bets?
Also, my guy, he's been playing tennis his entire life, played in college, really freaking good. And there was one time when we were living in Vegas, I would say this was probably around 2014-ish. I'm very athletic. I'm a physique athlete right now, but I'm very athletic. I've played all sports my entire life. And there was one day where he said, you suck and I don't want to play you anymore. And I was like, well, fine, make me better. And the athlete that I am, and we did every single day for minimum 1 hour for 6 months. He would take me outside, we would play tennis, and he would drill me and he would help me with my forehand and my backhand and my serve and everything. And I went from like a complete beginner to like a 4.0 level, and I was beating players in competition. And then I threw out my back. Playing the game led me into just a straight passion for watching tennis, like unbelievable. It's a beautiful sport.
It really is. And I know, as you mentioned, your athletic prowess, you get to see, I was similar, like not as decorated an athlete, but bigger into other sports, got into tennis through family growing up. And then when you get to college, it's the best way to keep your cardio shape. It is really tough to play. And it is, like you get benefits. Probably the best sport, I would say that it's the best benefit when you play someone a little bit better than you, because you're working on running, you're working on your fitness and everything. But like you said, there is a level to it. When someone's too good for you, then it's just not fun for them. And then they don't want to play anymore because they're just they're getting better.
So he said, let me make you better. And I was like, fine, I'll take that challenge, make me better. And he did. And it became a lot more enjoyable for him. But it was also like painstaking for me because he was a much higher level. And so I'm absorbing all of that power that he has as not only as a male athlete, but also as like a much better tennis player. Me being the athletic person that I am, I was also a Pilates instructor. I was a cycling instructor at the same time. And I was still going to the gym lifting. That was a lot on my back. So I no longer play tennis, but the passion for the game is still definitely there. Pickleball is the alternative, but it's definitely not the same.
So am I correct to assume that when you started to play and get serious, that's when you started to really follow the sport at the professional, at the ATP level? That goes into your unbiased, unbridled joy for watching Novak Djokovic play.
Oh, it is completely biased. It is an obsession at this point. Novak, if you are listening, I'm ready for breakfast anytime, man. Anytime. I love pancakes. I'm sure you do too.
Gluten-free.
Hit me up.
Gotta be gluten-free for Novak.
Gluten-free. Yes, I'm open to that. No, yeah, I've been watching tennis, I would say now for probably, as long as I've been with my guys for like 11 years. And, you grow, it's become, for a long time there, though, I wasn't betting on the sport. I would bet Australian Open. That's it. And the rest of the year, I'm a fan. But now, because I'm in content creating, it's a little bit different.
Certainly is. And your interest in tennis mirrors his just dominance of the sport, which I want to get into for the moment. We're at the ATP final stage of the year. There's only a few matches left. And we talked about scheduling this around this time. I'm not at all shocked at where we are midway through. We're gearing up towards another Novak Djokovic run at the title and run at another crack at Daniil Medvedev. But Djokovic had his match today. lost 5 games to one of the better players in the world, Andrei Rublev. And at 34 years old, what we've seen with him is that he doesn't slow down, and the betting markets, for the most part, are just going to make him a prohibitive favorite for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. There was a point in time, what was it, 2016, 2017, 2018, around there? You could just blind bet Djokovic to win every single tournament and you were making bank. And it wasn't even, injury wasn't a concern, competition wasn't a concern. The draw, it didn't matter. You knew that he was just untouchable. And the books, they never corrected themselves. You could get plus money on him to win any tournament, any surface, any time of the year, and you were making money. Things started shifting largely, and I think people still don't quite understand the importance of the pandemic that it's taken on the tennis world. No sport, in my opinion, has been drastically affected by the pandemic as tennis, and it makes a lot of sense because these players are traveling worldwide, unlike any other sport.
Pamela Maldonado here on Tennis Channel Inside In. You bring up some good points here as we talk sports betting and Novak Djokovic's dominance in the tennis world. There's a ranking system as well. So you have the rankings are basically year round. You have the COVID rankings, which is a little weird, but essentially what I'm getting at is you have numbers by your name that doesn't reflect where you are currently in the crop of players. So I think there's a ton of marketing inefficiencies there. And, you mentioned it with a great player like Novak Djokovic, the best value, which I'm sure I've seen you tweet out actually, is going to be in futures to start a tournament, because match to match, you're just not going to get much of anything for this guy to win heads up when he's expected to do that.
Absolutely. And for right now, every tournament, no matter what it is, typically he is going to be the favorite. He has been, even with the exception of Roland Garros, because it's not, you're going to have Nadal favored every single time blindly. That's just how it's going to be. But for every other tournament, whether it's an ATP Masters, whether it's a major, even if it is a little 500 event, it's going to be Djokovic up at the top. Blind betting him now is not advised. We are starting to see a lot of the players who are we no longer have the top 3, the top 4 anymore. It is Novak Djokovic, Medvedev, and then the rest of the field. They're starting to catch up. Some of these younger players, they're starting to contend. Djokovic, you're seeing him, he's having to adjust his game. He's having to employ more of a slice, a drop shot, and he's just doing things now fully capable, 100%. If there's any player that can make adjustments mid-match, it's Djokovic. But these players, they're starting to become more competitive.
Yeah, I heard a tennis player recently talking about Djokovic say it's like he designed the court. That's how comfortable he is up there with real estate. Oh. He knows how to work the geometry of it so well.
I love that.
Whether it's with him or with other players, I just kind of want to know more of your strategy. Are you somebody that will bet spreads, bet totals in terms of maybe you think a match is long and too tough to call or will go long? Do you like to live bet? That's another thing in the rage where if you catch a player down, a break, a set, what type of strategy, if you could walk me through what you do in terms of betting?
I'm going to give my secret sauce. You ready for it?
Ready.
Bet only the Australian Open. That's it.
That's it. That's what we're targeting.
That's what we're targeting.
Bang. Okay.
So here's the reason for that is it is in the beginning of the year. It is a fresh season. You have players, not just Djokovic, you have the rest of the field too, who have the freshest legs. Injuries not a concern. They've been rested. The longer you get into the season, travel is more of an impact. We're still in COVID situations. So every country has different protocols. Injuries are starting to pile on. So here we are in November, and you see players that are dropping out of ATP finals and Berrettini, injuries. Come January, late January, early February, once Australian Open starts, you got the freshest that a player is going to be. I would say more for betting purposes, more true to form. Australian Open is definitely the strongest, and it correlates to my success. If you see my numbers, I'm pretty freaking good when it comes to Australian Open, but it's by design, by design. And then towards the end of the season, once we start getting into I would say even just like right around May, June, July, things are starting to shift a little bit. Starting to have a few more losses. It's because a lot of more elements come into play.
I think that's a good piece of advice. It also probably explains why a guy like Novak Djokovic, when everybody's at their freshest, he's still the best and does so well down there. I don't want to critique your strategy too much, but I will say in addition to that, I would look at surface results and I would look at head-to-head. Head-to-head matchups is big because you'll have rankings, you'll have players that may even be coming on a losing streak or a win streak. There's something about that mental challenge of a player, a guy that's beaten me a bunch of times, or the flip side, if you beat somebody else, that could be as well. This ATP Finals, as we look right now, Pamela, Djokovic is even money to win the tournament. Now, I bring this up because you have him, you have Medvedev at plus 175. This is the only tournament a year, essentially, that's not just a bracket. This is round robin. They'll get to the semifinal stage, and then it's played out. You think the value on Djokovic is good at plus 100? Medvedev at plus 175 has been, as we mentioned, the only guy that could really consistently give him a match and beat him. Or is there value in some of these other players that might get those semifinal spots?
I would be looking, oh man, it hurts. It pains me to say this, but I would be looking to Zverev in this spot against Novak, at least for this
Plus
potential semifinal match.
Yeah.
That we would be seeing. It's a fast court speed, and you've heard some of the players complain that it is a little too fast, and it favors Zverev. We just saw Zverev be very competitive against Medvedev. That's the preview, because nobody else is more comparable to Djokovic right now than Medvedev. They split the tie breaks. He lost 8-6 in the third tie break. That's essentially the same player that he's going to be facing for Joker. Zverev would have to have a bad service game, I believe, in order for him to completely just like be dominated in that. So in my opinion, it's definitely more of a coin flip in this specific matchup. If Zverev is on, he's equally matched here on the surface. And Zverev, he doesn't just have a big serve. He has the big serve with the ability to place the ball in certain spots. He hits the corners of the box. His serve is phenomenal when it's on. Novak right now is struggling with his second serve. He's able to get those back because of the break points won. But I think this is going to be definitely a competitive matchup. If anything, I would be looking to Zverev to upset Djokovic. If they end up facing here in the semifinals. But ultimately, yeah, I would not be surprised that it's another Djokovic Medvedev.
There's a lot that I wanted to just break down there, because I agree with most of what you said. The fact that Zverev almost beat Medvedev, something that can kind of bring together football and tennis fans. That match was just marred by a replay controversy. They called they called the foot fault. They reviewed it. It was closer than you can imagine. Just why are we even at that point? I think it was unnecessary. But Zverev plus 550, as we mentioned, it's great value. I think what we could kind of get at is the head-to-head. If it's Zverev versus Djokovic, you're going to see him have real odds against him. I think it might be a tall task for Zverev to have to beat Djokovic and then Medvedev back-to-back in back-to-back days. I agree.
I'm not suggesting for the tournament. I'm suggesting to upset Djokovic.
Match,
that would one match.
That's way better value.
And only because if it does get to tie breaks, more so than anything, tie breaks are coin flips, and it favors the stronger server, and 100% right now that's Zverev.
And best of 3 versus best of 5, which we see in majors, Djokovic is just so physically fit. He wears everybody down.
Takes your legs and takes your soul forever. I need that etched in my background.
No, I think you might have to, the football season sign might have to go. That sign. No, and I just think that another side of this is Djokovic had that break after losing the U.S. Open where he took that time to recover and then came back. So I actually think he's way more fresh than he normally is this time of year. Because most of the time he's just playing through to the end of the year where these guys are getting more up and he might be on his last wins. He also hasn't won this event in a few years. So I think that's part of the motivation there.
No, I fully agree with that statement. And it is going to be Djokovic versus Medvedev. I would just like to see Zverev contend a little bit here because I want his confidence to be built back up. And that's only going to be built back up through defeating solid competitors and not rolling over them.
Medvedev is getting good. He's got the U.S. Open, the reigning champ. And it's kind of crazy how in the last, I've been following tennis a lot longer than you. It's gotten way taller. Like Djokovic is one of the small guys in this field now. Like when did
I hate that
happen?
I love that you mentioned that because yes, over the years, it has become a tall man sport. And I really don't like that because as a result of that, it's become more of a baseline game. You used to see back in the day where I may not have been watching tennis as long as you have, but I am also fully aware that back in the day, players came into the net and now they're not. It's a rarity to see a variety in people's games. And that's why I love Federer so much is because he's the only player who has that drop shot. He has the slice. He can move a player front and back, left and right. You don't see that anymore. And Medvedev is a prime example of that. He would be absolutely untouchable if he just came into the net more. And those are the adjustments that he needs to make in his game to have Djokovic dominance.
We're with Pamela Maldonado here on Tennis Channel Inside, and you mentioned Roger Federer. Bad day for a lot of Federer fans like myself. I'll try to get through this without crying, but he's out of the Australian Open. He's probably not going to be playing through Wimbledon, it sounds like, as well. He is definitely rounding third and heading home on his pro career. At this point, I think I speak for everybody. We just want to see him play some tennis going forward, but it also brings up, I mean, I was going to segue into the Australian Open 2022. It's not going to have Roger. Rafa is a question mark as well. He's listed as plus 900 on futures, but I'm not ready to say he's going to play yet. So we're getting into that post Big Three era, and I know as someone my age, it's a little sad to see. And then, you know, we got to get used to not having Roger, Rafa, eventually Novak as the guys anymore.
We're still missing Dominic Thiem. I would love to see Del Potro hit back on the court. Wawrinka, I mean, there's so many great players. We're seeing Monfils consistently get injured. There's so many great players who just have been around for so long and they're reaching the tail end of their careers. And of course, Roger Federer is one of them. I paid an exorbitant amount of money to go see him at the US Open, and he did not go. And I was disappointed. Made the most of it. It was a great experience, but that I believe that was my last chance to see him. I think the time is coming. We will maybe see Federer at Wimbledon or at the Laver Cup. I think, though, it's unlikely for Federer to be competitive enough to win another major. And it breaks my heart to say that. It's just it takes a toll on the body, and he's getting to the age where, hey, you know what? You need fitness, and he's going to be outmatched by some of these young guns.
I got to see him at Indian Wells a few times before the end, so I'm happy with that. But no, I mean, with Nadal as well. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries this year, especially French Open. He's still going to be a contender, but those chances are going to be, you know, fewer and fewer for him. The other side of this, the morbid side, or maybe the positive side for the bettors, is I think there's a trend with all sports, especially tennis, where some of the name recognition guys are favored or get more respect. You can even say this on the women with
overvalued,
where they're overvalued when they've kind of lost it or are starting to lose it.
Exactly. And you're going to see that with Djokovic. It's going to be Australian Open. This is his surface. This is his best tournament. He has the most titles there. He has all the accolades. He's going to get all the recognition. You can potentially find value elsewhere in maybe in Medvedev, and there's a lot of options when it comes to betting tennis. You don't always have to just predict a final. You can some of my favorite bets to make are to win the quarter or to reach the final. And typically when it comes to Australian Open, I think I want to say that I have correctly predicted the final for the Australian Open like 7 years in a row or something. Wow. It doesn't really take that much. It's not really that difficult. It's Djokovic versus somebody. and so it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But you can do exact matchup bets also. And I love to do them for the Australian, but you can do win quarter bets are my favorite. To reach the semis or to reach the final would be the second features that I like to do. And then obviously first round matchups, there's so much value in first round matchups because there's so many up on the board, and the books, they're not really paying attention to tennis. They're really more so paying attention to all of the props for the Super Bowl or something related, NBA finals or whatever else is happening in sports. Tennis always gets pushed to the wayside. There's actually a lot of value come Australian Open.
You're speaking my language. There's 128 players in the tournament. So think about how many matches that is. It's an insane.
Exactly.
It's bigger than March Madness in that regard. And yeah, win the quarter is a great idea because you can go one way, get some value on a favorite, Djokovic to win a quarter or something like that, where you just want to collect something easy, or you can find that underdog where they just have to get to the quarterfinal. They don't have to complete it. It's a good way to hedge there. So
exactly.
I agree with you on that one. Do you have any advice going forward other than Djokovic? I know you mentioned Medvedev and Zverev for the Australian Open. Are there any other players that you've got your eye on that you'd like to see? Maybe if Thiem or Tsitsipas can kind of make a run?
I think we're all interested in Carlos Alcaraz.
We're going future. I love it.
We are going future. Let's talk futures. Yeah, because back in February, I had posted a tweet. It was when I posted a name to watch in the next 2 years in tennis was Carlos, because at the time he was 17 years old, and it was right after he qualified for his first Grand Slam event, which was the Australian Open. He won 3 ATP Challenger titles that year, and he toasted. It was Goffin. There you go. He defeated Goffin in 73 minutes in a warm-up tournament. So I was like, all right, this kid, 17 years old, watch out. Look what he's accomplished in 9 months. I was saying, watch out in 2 years, and he's done this in 9 months. He has the speed. He has the all-around court game. He has power. I would not, and I know a lot of people are saying, oh, like he's very reminiscent of Nadal. Yeah. And yeah, I've been saying that for 9 months now, and I'm excited.
Because it's like he plays more like actually Federer when I watch him, but he's got that Nadal like heart fighting spirit and the power that Nadal had at 18. It's like he's a full grown man at 18 already. Exactly. That's a great pick for some of the other futures. I know we saw Yannick Sinner make the top 10. He's somebody that's on the climb, still 20. Felix Auger-Aliassime, the Canadian, who is on the fringe of the top 10 right now. And then the other name I got to throw out there, and I know you probably heard this name a bunch because he comes from the first family of athletics. It's Sebastian Korda. Because he's coming from sisters that are golfers. Dad was a tennis player. I think he's probably the American's best hope for somebody to crash that top 10 party.
I think you're not giving Taylor Fritz enough credit. Taylor Fritz, for the longest time, he was the player that I was hoping to see would be the American next best player. And, he went on and had himself a family, and that's fantastic for him. I really think that might have set him back in his professional career, but now we're starting to see glimpses of greatness from him. And I know that he didn't deliver when he played against Djokovic here recently, but he's definitely improved on his game. He's not just a big serve like some of these other American players are, but he's largely improved on his baseline game, on his ground game, on his forehand, his backhand. He's been better now than he was a couple of years ago. And I can't wait to see what 2022 does for him, because he's improved. And I would more so be interested in Fritz than I would Korda or some of these other players. And I'm still interested in Alcaraz over any of those guys, because I like a player who has variety. I like a player who can drop shot. I like a player who's going to come into the net. I like a player who's going to push you all angles of the court and not just play you from behind the baseline. That type of game style to me is just, it's not exciting. It's not, I love tennis, and I want to see, you said it yourself. He has a lot of Roger Federer in him, and that's probably why I'm so drawn to him. And then you tie that in with his love and his passion and his just like, his vamos lifestyle. I love it. Give me some Carlos Alcaraz. I can't wait to see him in 2022.
And born in 2003 doesn't help either. He's still just a baby at 18 years old. So there's a lot of tennis.
Wow. You just like made me feel like hella old. 2003.
2003. Yeah, that was
what was even happening in 2003. Backstreet Boys were still a thing, maybe. I don't even know.
Federer was playing. I mean, that was
man. Heartbreak.
But no, I appreciate chatting with you. I do have one other question I wanted to ask you. Where does the Djokovic loss in the U.S. Open final rank on your sports heartbreaks? Because it sounds like you had like a passion for him, and just seeing him that close, as close as anyone we've seen in our lifetime, to get the calendar slam.
It was. I know that. Oh man, that's another loaded one there. So yes, I do. I would say more so than anything, I'll give you another secret of mine. I actually don't enjoy betting on tennis. I love betting Australian Open. I really, truly do. 100%. That's my time to make money. The rest of the 11 months, I know that I'm going to take a back seat. I'm going to bet a little lighter, and I'm going to keep it recreational, because I do have such a passion for these players. I consider some of these guys the best athletes in the world, not just in tennis, the best athletes. And the appreciation that I have for Djokovic, it runs deep. And it really hurt, because it's not just in our lifetime. We may not see another player potentially achieve the type of success that he's had, but we may not see another athlete. And I think people go largely underappreciating that. Yes, Djokovic, you can call him the greatest of all time, but look at what he's done during that time. I truly believe that we don't have a GOAT in tennis. We do have the Nadal, the Federer, and the Djokovic, who all pushed each other to be great. And having those three players is a blessing, and people need to appreciate it because it's fading, and who knows what the future generation is going to bring us.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. These are three of the greatest athletes of all time. You can take tennis out of there, and your appreciation for tennis makes me smile as well, because I mean, these guys are literally playing matches and losing like 6-7 pounds running around out there. It is just
absolutely.
a grind. No, Pamela, this is fun. Pamela Maldonado. Check out all of her pics on Twitter and her work for the Yahoo Sports book. I did have one last thing. What's your career like? What's it like being a physical athlete and, getting into that mindset of training, of competing, of obviously the dedication you have to enter these competitions? As I look at that picture of you, I think deadlifting over your left shoulder.
I do, yeah. So my first competition was during football season. Never again can I do that, especially working for Yahoo. The type of content creating, the amount of work that's going into both the NFL and college football, and then you want to tie in some bodybuilding in between. I'm still competing. I'm still on prep right now, which means I'm in a slight deficit, but I'm still lifting at the gym every day. But you want to talk about mental toughness, and I think that's what goes underappreciated in tennis too. I always talk about the mental mindset that you need in order to be a Djokovic in this sport. Well, you need the mental toughness in order to be in bodybuilding as well, because you need to be able to still have a lifestyle of going out with friends, watching them enjoy the drinks and the food while you're eating a side salad. But you're still lifting the same 250-pound deadlift that you were doing on lower calories. You need the commitment. You need to understand that it's okay to say no to some of these social events and put in the time to do your cardio, do your weight training every single day. It is a full-time job being a bodybuilder, and the dedication, I think it's definitely trickled over. It all came from poker. The type of dedication that you had from poker, it trickled into sports betting, it's trickled into bodybuilding. It's all related.
Wow. Well, no, I agree. And I think it's very admirable what you're doing. And you have that, that wolf mindset like Novak Djokovic. He considers himself the wolf. I think that there's a little bit of that in you as well.
I'm definitely more of a bull, but yes, the
Okay.
wolf.
Well, all right. Fair enough. Pamela Maldonado, a pleasure talking tennis and talking sports betting with you. Good luck with everything, though you don't need much luck. Your star is rising as we speak. But thanks for coming on Tennis Channel Insight, and always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.